I burnt my tongue before recording this. TF2 is an old-ass game, nearly 16 years now and 150 maps added. It's no surprise that after all this time, some maps just fall into obscurity and never get played again. But today we'll remember as I take you through TF2's oldest and most forgotten maps. Now to explain what I think a dead map is, it's anything that comes up in Teamwork TF's map files as having an average of 0 players onto it. And I'm obviously not calling any of these maps bad, they just have a lower player base count than any other map in the game, and it's just been a real big time since anyone's played them. Not that that's going to stop someone in the comments being like, oh, my favourite map's Yukon, I loved playing that when I was 1 year. Actually, speaking of which, the first map we're going to be talking about is Yukon. So Yukon was added in the classless update of 2009. The map takes place on a mountainside coal mine, which would then be repurposed into a surveillance center later down the line. We can tell this because of the rocky scenery, the multiple tunnels used in the map, and the giant satellite on last point. Plus, this is all explicitly told to us in the wiki, so that's yeah, I'm a fraud. Gameplay-wise, this map isn't actually too bad. It's nothing that you don't see in maps like Dust Bowl and such. Tight corners, hard to push points, spammable chokes, you get the point. But while certain maps feel really well designed for specific classes, Yukon kind of has an issue where it doesn't really feel good to play as any class on it. Let's do a rapid fire round of every class actually. As Scout, the map can feel really hard to maneuver around as most of the map takes place in tunnels and it's really hard to double jump or avoid your greatest enemies, which is just dying to sticky spam and rockets. Soldier doesn't have very many opportunities to rocket jump around, like this choke for example doesn't extend high enough for a good rocket jump, and the fact that this shutter has a little awning over the top of it meaning you can't jump straight to last. Pyro actually isn't that bad, fair enough. Demo suffers from the same problem as Soldier. Heavy has to sit in choke points the most, so he gets destroyed by sticky spam and rockets. NG doesn't have any good sentry spots outside of last, which encourages the turtling playstyle, which is a bit boring. There's a lot of sniper sightlines available, so medics are never having a good time. While those sightlines do exist, the map is also quite small, which makes sniper a bit more complicated to play on when it comes to getting rushed down. And the chokes are so small that not many people can get behind a spy. It's just really frustrating to be constantly walking into players. While there's a lot more points I could bring up about Yukon not being a successful map, I think these are the main ones. It's just not very fun to play any of the classes on this map. And I'm talking as someone who actually prefers Gully Wash as my favourite competitive map, even though I play Scout, and that's a soldier-oriented map. You know, I should probably like something more like Sunshine. Cactus Canyon. A lot of people will remember this map if you played long enough. This was added to the game as a beta and then never received updates ever, which is sad, and it really reflects TF2's development team and design philosophy and... Anyway, as I said, this map is a beta, so it never was actually finished, so whilst I do think it's a little mean to shit on this map's gameplay design, it obviously counts as this video because, you know, it was a forgotten map, just by Valve this time. It's a multi-stage payload map, which we see in the likes of, say, Thunder Mountain or Hoodoo. You can tell Cactus Canyon's old because there's multiple areas of the map that you can see through the floor, really strange geometry in some areas, and just generally being a really confusing map to play at times. So, like, for example, the HUD doesn't actually display that the cart has to go up at this last section, or at least it's covered by the final point, so you might not know that the cart's going to fall down here if you've just started playing. Or just general gameplay elements, like on the second point, you have to make sure the cart gets hit by the train here, which is, I don't think, featured in any map other than Banana Bay, which will be added way, way later. But much like we saw with that map and this one we're talking about now, a lot of players get the cart to the final point and then just get confused as why doesn't the game end? Why isn't, you know, why haven't we won? Also, right before you cap, there's a section where the map will automatically take control of the cart and just move it for you, which again is a bit weird because we can see through walls now. We know that the cart's just like moving on its own. It all comes down to just a really confusing map that was never finished and also just plays awkwardly. And I'm sure it's just my nostalgia talking when I say, oh, I used to watch German Star videos where they'd play Cactus Canyon, but God, I really hope they won't go back and finish this map. I long wish for the days of my 2014 TF2 playtime. Oh, speaking of which... Pipeline and Nightfall, so I'm going to group these into the same area because they basically have the same issues of payload race, but just without the funness of Hightower. Now, the reason I brought this up in the last segment is because when I started the game, I would play nothing but Pipeline and Nightfall, basically every time I booted up the game. It was my favourite game mode, and I have so much nostalgia for these maps. That will not be changing my opinion that they are shit, though. So obviously I've mentioned that they're payload race maps, but what's unique about these two in particular is that they're multi-stage payload race maps. But it's not actually a best of 3 type game mode. What is actually happening is every time you win a point, you're actually moving the cart a little bit more forwards on the 3rd stage of the map. And the fact that it isn't just cap the point win is a pretty big reason why the map's not well designed, if I can't explain it in 1 second. Only until the last point is capped would a team then win. So you can win twice in a row, lose at the end, and you've just lost the whole game. Both maps have their own problems as well, as Pipeline has a bunch of sightlines that you can't really maneuver around, and Nightfall just has this issue where everything just feels so closed in at times that it's just so impossible to play at times when you don't instantly want to die to sticky spam. I could talk more about how Payload Race as a game mode isn't necessarily the best thing for TF2, but it's not treated as a core game mode, and it's not necessarily taken seriously within the community anyway. It would make a video on its own. This one already might go a bit too long, so I'll just leave it here. And speaking about leaving things... Oh, Asteroid, you half-baked mess. So RD Asteroid counts as part of the RD game mode type, which is Robot Destruction, which involves players running to the enemy base and killing the robots inside there, collecting their scrap. You must then run that scrap back to your base to collect a point, taking it into your core. Now, the game's not all about attacking, because your core can be stolen by the enemy team, in which it's sort of like Capture the Flag, where you run into the enemy base, grab the core, bring it back to yours, and steal all the points from the enemy team. Now, the map itself isn't finished. It was a beta released in 2014, which means that some dev textures are in the game, and not every gameplay style is respected in the game at the moment because it just hasn't gone through gameplay iterations yet. But the obvious big factor that killed Robot Defense is the game mode itself. Capture the Flag already isn't the most respected game mode, it's always got that casual atmosphere to it, but Robot Defense takes it a step further by not even allowing people who want to play the game to have an easy time, because there's extra steps involved that you just don't even want to do. Like, you can't even be sneaky in this mode like you can with Capture the Flag, because you have to be shooting the robots, so you can't use those shots to kill enemy players that might be contesting you. And then at the same time, you have to be defending, because if you're not, someone's going to take all your points and just completely flip the game on its head. I had this happen to me live when I was testing my server for the first time. Take a look at this footage.
When you're capping something, it makes a cash money sound. That's
Why
fucking
are
high.
we losing?
I'm taking all your points. I'm stealing everything.
That's how that worked? Huh?
Oh, someone check up that taunt kill, please. Absolutely criminal. I hope we see it again. Now, yes, technically no one's played Asteroid enough to really know the ins and outs of it, but let's be real, it was never a game mode that was going to pop off. However, a game mode I have played a lot more of is Territory Control, so it's finally time to talk about... So I wasn't happy with my Snake Water finale in the last video, so I think this is a good improvement. TC Hydro might be the worst map in Team Fortress 2, as it was actually played for a long time, and I once played a tournament on this. Look in my inventory, you'll see TC Hydro, Hydro TF, my favourite and worst tournament I ever played. Hydro is part of the TC game mode. That stands for Territory Control. It involves both teams having a control point that the enemy can capture. Should the enemy capture this point, the map itself will change further or closer to the enemy team's base, and vice versa if you won around. The game concludes when one team captures all the territory from the other and pushes them all the way back to the end and then captures the final point. Now, if this wasn't confusing already, the fact that the map also randomizes which doors are and aren't open in each territory every time makes it really hard to learn the map. For example, you might have a planned route that you want to take, but oh, no. Looks like the map's decided that this time, this door's closed, so no walking through there. Combine it with the fact that this is a super early mode in TF2, and if you've seen anything from Dust Bowl or Gravel Pit, these places can become stalemate hell, as engineers have an easy time setting up level 3s, creating bases that you'll never be able to break through. I'm a scout main at heart, and I tried my best to play the class on this map, and it just wasn't a fun time at all. There's so many tight corners on this map, and so many cramped choke points, that one soldier or one demo can just make it unplayable for you. Now, obviously I'm biased, but it did force me to come off my main, which not many maps really do. Again, earlier in the video I mentioned I actually really do like Gully Wash, even though it's a lot more soldier oriented, because I think there's a nice challenge in needing to play a bit differently to make your character work. But Hydro just felt really restrictive for me on Scout. I can't really relate to other classes because I only really play Demo, who thrives on this map, and I don't really play the ones that I think would have a bad time like Spy, although my friend Liz does. Liz, how was the map? Every area has at least one point that's either inside or underground or something. Plus, these points aren't mirrored, by the way. You actually have an advantage depending on which side you're on, depending on your class. That's just an absolute cardinal sin. It makes me cry and not want to talk about it anymore, so I won't. Welcome to the outro. Thank you very much for watching. I do want to make a mention, by the way, that I'm very appreciative of all the views that the last videos have gotten and the amount of subscribers that I've gained since starting this little series. The Discord server's also gone quite well. I've really been happy with the community we formed at the moment, and the recording sessions have actually gone quite well. I'm sure a couple of people in that Discord will be seeing themselves in this video, and remember that you can join the video too. If you want to join the Discord, we'll get you in some recording sessions, and you might see yourself in some of these B-roll footage clips. The Discord in general is just a really fun place to be. A lot of people's nice, and a little bit of artwork's been done for me, of which I'll be displaying them at the bottom either before I've said this or maybe after. I don't really know. So hop on in if you want to talk to some nice people, get some artwork done, be featured in the video, or maybe just talk about horses 24/7. I don't know how it started, but I can't stop it now.